Welcome to Cancer What Now, the webcast. Hi, my name's Graeme Goodings and I'm a cancer survivor, and I'm so pleased that you could join me today. You're probably tuning in for one of a number of reasons. Perhaps you're a cancer patient yourself, maybe you've just recently been diagnosed with cancer, or maybe you're the family member of a cancer patient. And there's also people out there who are the friends of someone who has contracted cancer. And there are those who just want to learn more about cancer. Unfortunately, most of us have been touched by cancer in our lives at some time. If you're one of those very fortunate few people that have not been touched by cancer but just want to find out more about it, well, good on you. And may your luck continue, because the odds are in this cruel, cruel world that sooner or later either you or a member of your family or someone very close to you will contract cancer. Look, before we go any further, I just might let you know that this webcast is for educational and informational purposes only, and do not construe it as medical advice. The information is not intended to replace medical advice that is offered by physicians. So now that we've got that clear, perhaps I can tell you my story. I contracted cancer way back in November 2004. More than 10 years ago now, but dear oh dear, those memories are as vivid today as they were then. And I was diagnosed purely by chance. I put it down, there's a story that I call the Euros that saved my life. It happened that I was going to work at Channel 7. I had a late start and I was with my wife. We were trying to work out what we'd have for lunch. There wasn't anything in the house. It was a beautiful November day. And I said, what's I go over to the shopping centre and grab a couple of those beautiful chicken gyros. Really not good for the waistline, but absolutely delicious. So that's what I did. I brought the gyros back. We sat down and ate them. I finished, went into Channel 7, read the bulletin at night, read the updates, and then got home about 8:30 or 9, and I remember feeling a little bit of a tightness in my chest. Thought that's a bit of indigestion. It'll go away, as blokes do. We don't think anything's particularly serious. Well, it got worse, and despite my wife saying, I think you should head off to hospital, I said, look, that'll be right, it'll go away, and I'm bouncing around trying to dislodge this food. Let's cut a long story short. I ended up in hospital, in the emergency section of a hospital. Anyone who's spent time in an emergency section of a hospital knows what I'm talking about. It's not a great place to be. I spent more than 2 hours waiting to be seen, and I was in agony and writhing around, but I know there were people more in need than me. Eventually I got in. They started running a few checks, and while they're running the checks, I started to feel a bit better. And in the early hours of the morning, they said, look, we've done all the scans and checks and x-rays, and it looks like you've had a massive gastric disturbance. And I immediately thought back to the Eros. I said, well, yeah, that could be. And they said, it's passed through now, and it's all clear, you're fine. And I was sort of getting ready to go, and this young intern came up and said, look, Mr. Goodings, would you mind if we just ran a couple of extra tests? I think by this time it's about 4 in the morning. I thought to myself, well, I've really got nowhere else to go. I might as well stick around. Okay, do your tests. So he ran a couple of tests and came back and had a rather concerned look on his face. And he said, look, I've seen something in the scan that I'm a little bit concerned about. I think you should take it a bit further. So not thinking too much of it, I went and saw a specialist, and we had more tests. And then came that fateful day. I was sitting in the specialist room with my wife, Eve, beside me. And he said, look, Graeme, I'm afraid you have colorectal cancer. It's at level 3, and we're going to need to do something pretty soon. Well, you may well know, if you've been diagnosed with a life-threatening illness, your life changes from that moment on forever. Life will never be quite the same. And I was seeing and hearing the messages through a blur as he was saying, you know, what you've got to do, and you better have these tests, and you're facing surgery and chemo and radiotherapy, etc., etc. And I was looking in a state of shock. I remember going outside, it was raining, we got in the car and we're driving home. And then came an awful realization. All right, I'd been diagnosed with cancer, but in my heart I knew I could deal with it. I knew my wife could deal with it. We'd deal with it together. But what about our kids? We had 3 children, aged, I think, 19, 16, and about 13. And, you think to yourself, what do you tell the kids? Do you tell them anything? It's just one of those areas you don't want to put them through the hardship, but you just can't pretend life is going on as normal. Well, we made the decision that we'd sit the kids down and talk to them about it and just give them enough information that they understand something was happening, but with a positive spin on it that everything would be all right. Dad was going to undergo some tests and some treatment. He'd have a bit of a rough trot there for a while, but it had all come out well in the end. Well, I could see on the kids' faces that they were doing it tough, but what we said to them was, look, just get on with your lives. We'll deal with this. And I'm so thrilled to say that they did pretty well get on with their lives, or I know it was resting pretty heavy in their hearts that their father was pretty sick. So anyway, that was sort of out of the way, and then we had to get down to the business side of further tests and preparation for surgery. And I was under the mistaken misapprehension that colorectal cancer, it was very low down in the bowel. In fact, only sort of 3 centimetres or so from the entrance. So I thought, look, they'll put me to sleep, flip me over, work away, cut out the cancer. Bob's your uncle, she'll be right after an hour or so. Well, boy, did I get that wrong. When I awoke after 6 hours of surgery and in excruciating pain, I found that I'd been cut from breastbone to pelvis and across ways, and virtually they have to take out every organ in your body to get to the lower bowel. So hence my knowledge of the medical profession is pretty limited. But they got the cancer out, and the doctor was pretty happy with what he'd done. He'd had to take out several lymph nodes, but he said, I reckon I've got it all. So then it was a matter of finding out what other treatment I needed. So I underwent 5 weeks of radiotherapy and chemotherapy. And I also incorporated complementary medicine, my wife being a homeopathic practitioner and a naturopathic nutritionist. I'm very much into complementary medicine. That's not for everyone, and I'm not saying you should do that, but I incorporated that. But I must say, if you're thinking of doing that, please speak to your medical practitioners. Say, look, I would like to incorporate complementary medicine. How do you feel about it? Now, if they give you the green light and say yes, as long as you let me know what treatment you're getting as well as what I'm giving you, that's fine. If they say no, I'm totally against complementary medicine, well, you're going to have to make a decision. Do you go to another specialist, or do you stick with what they're saying? That is up to you. No one can make up that decision for you. And look, I'm just putting it out there, so you make up your own mind. But for me, complementary medicine certainly helped in all my treatment. And it was a long and arduous 8 months off work from Channel 7, and I must say 7 were wonderful. They just said, look, you go away and get well, come back when you're ready. And as I say, it was about 8 months of excruciating, very unpleasant times, but we got there. Other people go through a lot worse. And I must say, during that time, I came up with the idea of a DVD because I guess it was the journalist in me. I wanted to know so much. And I think everyone wants to know about their disease and the treatments and so forth. But you have to be very wary. I remember the first time I typed in colorectal cancer, bowel cancer, into Google, and I got more than 10 million places to look at. And trust me, it's not all good news. In fact, very little of it is good news. And if you're looking for a positive prognosis, probably going to Google is not the way to do it. So I thought, I still need this information. I looked around. There just wasn't a source of information that really satisfied me. That's when I came up with the idea of a DVD, and I thought, well, maybe there are DVDs out there that deal with cancer. And sure, there were DVDs about breast cancer, prostate cancer, lung cancer, but they were cancer specific. And I thought, what about a DVD that deals with cancers across the board, general cancer, in terms of you're diagnosed with cancer, what's it like, how are you going to react to it, what's it normal to react like, what form of treatments are available? Because although there are over 200 types of cancer, the treatment and the way you feel about it can be very similar right across the board. So it is important, I thought, to have a source of information that gives you general information on cancer and put in layman's terms, put it basically and simply, and not out of a textbook, not from a practitioner, but from people who have been there and done that. So I came up with this concept of a DVD, Cancer What Now, in fact. And I had a meeting with Cancer Council SA, and I'm thrilled to say that they thought it was a wonderful concept, and they backed me, and I went about putting the DVD together. And one of the most vital ingredients, I mean, we talk to specialists and we talk to psychologists and cancer carers and all the sorts of people that can help you out, dietitians, etc. That's all dealt with on the DVD. But I think one of the most important ingredients is we talk to cancer survivors. And each chapter has a cancer survivor talking about how they dealt with particular issues, how they dealt with having to tell the boss. I mean, that's another thing. I mean, you've been dealt this savage blow of being told you've got cancer, and you've got to tell your family and friends, your kids, and then you've got to tell the boss. And this is your livelihood, particularly if you're the sole income earner. You know, you go and tell your boss, is that going to put your job in jeopardy? How are you going to incorporate working and treatment? And it can all be pretty scary. So that is all covered in the DVD. And in fact, there are 10 chapters, and I'll go into that later because I thought this introductory webcast would just tell you a little bit more about the thinking behind producing Cancer What Now and why it is not vital for everybody to know about it, but to know that it exists. Because although there is a wonderful resource, and that's the Cancer Council's helpline, and you know, it really is the first port of call for anyone with cancer, the Cancer Council helpline, because you're going to come up with a million questions, a million things you want to know, and you can't be ringing your doctor every other day. Your doctor just can't be there for you. They're wanting to help you, but they can't be. But the Cancer Council helpline is there for you on 13 11 20. It's confidential. You speak to a Cancer Council nurse who can provide you with all the answers you need. And if they can't provide you then and there, they'll find out the information. So that's the first port of call, the Cancer Council helpline. And as I said, I must thank the Cancer Council for all the support they gave me putting the DVD together.